think we're ready to jump into things if you want to go over to that agenda. All right, so again, really appreciate everybody being here today. The highlights for today are getting our dashboards configured in your sandbox so that you can both demo them to your prospects and clients and also help clients configure them in their actual environments. Now, we're going to go through those 4 dashboards that you see up on the screen, our financial, sales, warehouse, and history and statistics. We're going to start with going over a brief overview of how to assign permissions and generate keys. These are the most common support requests that we get, so I want to tackle that first and foremost. We will review our new configuration checklist that you can go step by step to make sure that you and your clients have everything needed to successfully configure and use our tools. Carlie's then going to go into a deep dive of each app setup, and then time permitting, we're going to also show some key examples in each dashboard. Now, again, the goal is to enable you to get this in your demo environment and show it off to your clients and prospects, plus help clients configure it once they've actually made that purchase. So with that, Carlie, without any further ado, let's jump into that configuration and make the most out of our time today.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Ben. Okay, so like Ben said, we're going to do a few housekeeping things to start us off here. So I'm going to go over permissions, how to generate that demo key, and how to kind of reach out to us if we need a new key as well. Okay, so with permissions, I'm going to go to the user page here, and I like to access this permission set by user page right here. So if I go here, I can see all my users, right, as columns across here, and then all permissions as rows. And so what we've done is any permission related to any of our apps start with ERC. So I'm going to create a filter ERC with the asterisk here. And now you're going to see all of our permissions, right? Today we're focusing on all the dashboards, financial dashboard, sales dashboard, history and statistics, and warehouse dashboard. So those are the ones we'd want to look at here. But again, this is a great way to make sure everyone in the system has those permissions, okay? So if I look here we'll use financial dashboard as an example here. You'll see these two, a financial dashboard setup and a financial dashboard here. So in general, each of our apps have 2 permissions. Financial dashboard setup is someone that will actually need to access the setup page, like going to configure it like we're going to do today. Okay, and then the other one is more so just a user who will actually access the financial dashboard itself after it has been configured. Okay, so here I could come in and make sure all users have that or specify what users need access to those. Okay. Alrighty, so there's permissions. I'm going to go and start off on our financial dashboard setup page to show the demo key here. So I can look up FDB setup page right here. Here up at the top, and this goes for the same for the other apps as well, you'll see a generate demo key. So once you install the extension in their environment and want to do the 30-day free trial, you can generate the demo key right here. Okay, that is going to update the activation section down here for those 30 days. Okay, after that point, once you want to purchase, or once client wants to purchase, we need that activation tenant ID right here to generate the activation key. Okay, and so another example would be maybe we need a new demo key after the 30 days, something like that. Again, you're going to grab this tenant ID right here, send that over to us, and that's how we'll generate the activation key. Okay, and it's as simple as you'll just enter the activation key here, hit OK, and then this section again down here, the activation will update. Okay. One other housekeeping thing that we've done is a part of our setup guide. And so just basically everything I just walked through, like Ben said, those are kind of the highest support questions we get. And those are really just like housekeeping things. So what we've done is in our setup guide, we've added a checklist here, just kind of a quick spot check to make sure, hey, you've done these 5 things and you're ready to go, right? So generate the demo key, set up user permissions, set up the financial dashboard by module, which we're going to do here next, okay? So again, those will be in each of our dashboard setup guides as a little configuration checklist you can access. And then lastly, to access this setup guide, you can go to our website here, click on the app that you're looking at, come down here and access setup and user guide from here to download. Okay, we are going to get right on into the setup now. for financial dashboard. Next, okay, I'm first going to start on the user setup page right here. Okay, so this is separate from user permissions. So we already went through permissions. The next step, and most of our extensions have a user setup here. So if I open that up, here's where I'm specifying the user and what they can access on the dashboard. So anyone that wants access or needs access to the financial dashboard needs to be set up here. From here, I can specify which tabs on the dashboard itself they can have access to. So you'll see here, if I were to add JC here, I can say she has access to the dashboard. It will default the rest, and then from there I could uncheck, if maybe she shouldn't see AP or AR, I can uncheck, those tabs, and then it'll limit her access on the dashboard itself. Okay, and the same thing goes for the other apps as well. A few other settings to call out over here, this dashboard view. So this is when they access the financial dashboard, when they open it up, what tab do they want to be as their default view? Okay, so if I am an AR resource on the AR team, maybe I want my first view to be AR, and then I can, of course, toggle still after that. It's just your default. So you can set that by user. These next two fields here are if when I'm on the dashboard itself, if I'm working on it, if I want it to auto refresh, every minute, every 2 minutes, okay? There is a hard refresh button on the screen as well that I like to use, so I'm not specifically using these two fields, but that is an option, okay? Dashboard date range, this is similar concept to the dashboard view. What do you want your default date range to be? So when you open up the dashboard, my default is today, but I can of course change that once I get to the dashboard to be last 30 days, last month, fiscal year to date. It's just the default again. Okay, cycle view on timer, this is going to cycle through the tabs on the dashboard, okay? So if I want it to automatically cycle through, I can check that here. And then lastly, show settings. This is going to basically show what date range you're on at the top of the dashboard. If you have this unchecked, it's not showing you at the top what current date range you're in. And I can show that once we actually go to the dashboard after we've set it up, okay? Alrighty, so I'm going to close out of here, and we're going to just kind of go through this top to bottom now, okay? So the first section here is my financial reports. You can set up 4 financial reports, and these are just setting up the financial reports that you've already set up in Business Central, right? Previously called account schedule. So you're grabbing your financial report, the row layout, the column layout right here. Okay, so you can set up to 4. You don't have to set up 4 though. If you only set up 2, balance sheet, income statement, and you don't need any other ones on the dashboard, it will automatically hide the tabs for financial report 3 and 4. Okay, so when you're selecting this, it will drop down to the financial report page inside of Business Central and default to the row and layout you want to use, and you can update that as well over here. Okay. You can also put a period type. So for income statement, right, we're looking at month. You do have the option here to change that. And then you have a global dimension 1 and 2 filter. Okay, so let's say my global dimension 1 is department. Okay, here maybe one of my department dimension values is accounting, okay, or sales or IT. This, I would actually be putting the dimension value filter here. So maybe I want to filter this report to my sales department. Okay, so this would be an auto filter to the sales department for dimension 1. And you're able to do a filter for dimension 1 and 2. Okay. So again, you can set up 4. You don't necessarily have to. It would auto hide the other 2 reports if I only set up 2. Okay. Next section down here, liquid assets. So this is on our cash tab on the financial dashboard. This would be used for any cash account that is not set up as a bank account. So a good example would be petty cash, right? Maybe we want to track that petty cash as a part of our cash balance on the dashboard, but it's not set up as a bank account typically, right? So I could come in here, add petty cash here, name it. So this is going to be the name I want it to appear on the dashboard. So petty cash. And now it's going to show me petty cash as a part of my cash balance on the dashboard. Okay. And you can add up to 4 of those. Next section here is for inventory. So if you're not necessarily using inventory or you don't want it to spend time loading when you're on the dashboard, you do have the option to hide inventory charts. So you can hide inventory charts and inventory valuation. I have those left off, okay? And then you also have two options for excluding zero on charts, okay? And so exclude zero on item category chart and exclude zero on location chart. All that this is saying is, for example, if an item category has a value of 0 for the period I'm looking at, rather than taking up space on the graph showing, a 0 balance, we're just going to remove it. So it's essentially only showing item categories with a balance for the period I'm looking at. Okay, just makes the graph look a little bit better. You can do it either way. And then that's the same exact concept here for location. If a location has a 0 balance or 0 valuation for a period, we're just going to hide it rather than showing that there. Okay. Next section here is for accounts receivable. So the AR tab on my dashboard. So I have an average paydays indicator threshold. Okay, so on the dashboard, if I have a sales invoice that was due yesterday, it's going to show as red. Okay, it's past due. How many days? Okay, so it just shows as red. And then I'm saying 5 days after it was due, I want it to show as red bold. Okay, so basically on our AR dashboard, it'll show invoices as black, meaning that they're not past due. They'll show invoices as red, which means they are past due, and then it'll show red bold for anything 5 days after the due date. Okay, so you have an option here to change that to be whatever you want. Okay. Our aging list here, so you have the option to show all customers or only customers with a balance on the aging. So I like to do balance only here. Okay. Next section is cash forecast. Okay, so in our financial dashboard, we have a cash forecast that's completely separate from the out-of-the-box forecasting tool. Okay, so we've set our own here. In the forecast, we have it so it's automatically bringing in, posted invoices and looking at the due date of those to forecast those when we'll receive payment on those. It's also looking at sales orders and expect the shipment date, calculating with payment terms to bring in expected and forecasted sales orders. And then it does the same thing on the purchase side. It brings in posted invoices. It looks at purchase orders to forecast those. The one thing that all doesn't capture right is like overhead expenses, maybe like payroll, things like that. And so what we've done to be able to forecast things like payroll into this cash forecast is you'll build a GL budget specifically for the cash flow. So if you drop down on this and then I'm going to open that up, you'll see that this is just coming from the out-of-the-box GL budgets list here, okay? So what you can do is just come in here, create a new cash flow budget. I'll do 2024 here. I can come up and edit budget. I would essentially just budget out, for my salaries, payroll expenses here for the period, so 2024, and then those things that I'm budgeting will come into your cash flow forecast on the dashboard itself. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to cancel out of that. Here, the date formula is how far out do I want my forecast to go on the dashboard. So I'm saying 60 days. You can change that if needed. Here we have future receipt number date option. So this is how I mentioned that we're forecasting sales orders and when we're expecting to ship those sales orders and then eventually receive payment for those invoices once we invoice out the sales orders. If that sales order does not have a shipment date, it gets stuck when we try to, forecast it because we're using shipment date. So if it does not have a shipment date, we have an option where you can air it out, which I wouldn't recommend. Essentially, the cash forecast is going to air out. Or you can ignore it. So we're going to say we're going to ignore the sales order if it doesn't have a shipment date. Or in order to forecast it, again, right, because it is just a forecast, we could use today as the shipment date, just so it'll come into our forecast, okay? And then we have the same exact concept on the purchasing side. If my purchase order does not have an expected receipt date, do you want to air it out? Do you want to ignore it? Or do you want to use today, so today's date, as expected receipt date? Moving on to KPI settings here. And so these go hand in hand with our KPI setup here, okay? So we're gonna set up kind of the background first, and then we'll look at the actual KPIs here. So In this section, it's really looking for totaling accounts. So you'll see I have it linked to my total income here. Number of employees is an estimate. Here's to generate some of our KPIs like revenue by employee and things like that. And then again, you're describing your totaling accounts. You can use a range here. So I do have a totaling account set up on my chart of accounts. That way it was nice and easy, but you could also use a range. Okay, so total asset, total liability, it is just a drop down from your chart of accounts here, okay? This one here, so number of payment receipts for APD, which is average paydays, okay? So on our accounts receivable tab on the dashboard for the customer aging, so for each customer, we're calculating what their average days to pay is, okay? So to generate that average, how many previous sales invoices do you want to look at for that customer or for all customers, okay? And so if I have 5 here, it's basically going to look at the last 5 invoices from the customer, when they paid it compared to due date to see when their average days to pay is do they pay on average 15 days or 30 days, etc. So this is just how many previous invoices do you want to look at to generate that average. If there's less than 5, it'll just use as many as they have, right? If the customer does not have any history yet, it will look at 5 or it will do an average of 30 as average. Okay, so you first have to get these KPI settings set up here, and then I want to go to KPI setup. So these are where I'm generating all of my goals. So if you're following along with me and you see a blank list, what you can do is hit generate KPIs and it'll automatically generate all of these for you. Okay, so you don't have to add them one by one, or you can go down here row by row and add them yourself as well. Okay, so you'll see all these KPIs. You'll see a column for show on dashboard. So if you want to leave them here, but maybe it's a work in process, you're not quite ready to show them on the dashboard yet, you can hide them, okay? So if I uncheck these here, when you go to your financial dashboard in the KPI section, you would not see these 3 that I unchecked, right? Okay, so I'm gonna put those back on. Then over here, we're generating our goals, right? So in our setup guide, we have a great section that goes over how to generate each of these goals and what are we actually looking for, okay, right? So for example here, you'll see period versus last period revenue. Okay, so this is looking at current period versus last year, and 1.5 would mean that I'm looking for a 50% growth over last year, okay? In order to know exactly what we're looking for, we put examples in our setup guide to kind of aid you in setting all of these up, okay? So here again, you'll put your goals for each of these. You don't have to use all of them, and then uncheck any you don't want to see on your dashboard. Okay. All right. So I'm going to hit close here. This reset value entry right here is essentially going to update item profit and category code on value entries for sales. So this is a couple columns that we added on value entry table for our financial dashboard. Okay, so this is something that I would run after hours, and you just have to do it one time. So essentially, as soon as you're setting up the financial dashboard after hours, just go ahead and run this process and you don't have to do it again. And again, it's just a couple columns that we added to calculate other graphs and everything on the financial dashboard. Okay, so I'm going to hit no for now. So that is the setup really from top to bottom here. Again, the goals for that to be a one-time setup here. The KPIs are maybe more so an ongoing process that you can come back to and update each year as things change and as goals change, okay? But after we've gone through this configuration like I've done now, it would be expected, as long as you have permission set up as well, that everyone can access the financial dashboard. So I'll hop over there now just to show kind of, this is what it's going to look like once we have that set up. Here's the financial dashboard. One thing to note, it's asking me, it's been more than 24 hours since AR aging was last calculated. Do you want to recalculate? I'm going to say no for now, just so we can open it up here. But it's essentially would just update this because it's been over 24 hours, okay? Okay, so here I'm on the financial dashboard. the AR was my default view. Remember, so on the user setup, each person has a default view. Mine is AR. That's why it went right to the AR tab. Okay. You'll see here I can kind of toggle back and forth. We'll just look at the KPIs to look at those, and then we will move on to sales dashboard setup. Okay, and here's my general page here. You see all those KPIs. Any that you hid or unchecked, show from dashboard on your KPI page would not show up here. Okay. Great. We are going to move on to the sales dashboard setup next. Okay.
And Carlie, while you hop over there, a lot of good questions in the chat. If anybody else has any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to just go ahead and throw them in the chat, but we've got a few more dashboards to get through, so I'll be attempting to answer all of those as Carlie's kind of showing the setups and what we can do with those dashboards as we get them into Business Central. So I'll talk to you in the chat if anybody has any other questions.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, sales dashboard setup. Here you can see that this one's pretty quick. It's nice. The financial dashboard setup is really the quickest of them all. And here we are about 15 minutes later with that one already done. Okay. So sales dashboard setup, you'll see right away, we also have a user setup here. So this should be familiar, right? I'm adding anyone that should have access to the sales dashboard here, user by user, what their default view is. So my default view is the back order tab, right? But once I get there, I can change between tabs as I want. The start timer and dashboard refresh, again, go hand in hand if I want my dashboard to automatically refresh. Again, my default date range. So when I go to the dashboard, what do I want my default date range to be? If I want it to cycle through the tabs automatically, is the cycle view on timer. And then I have 4 fields down here that you can set up user by user for a dimension KPIs, okay? So these first 2 go hand in hand. This is going to be a sales report that shows dimension by dimension. So I want to see sales by department and area, okay? So you can set up 2 dimensions here on one graph, okay? And then over here, we have 2 other separate reports. So this is going to be sales by department and sales by projects, okay? And again, you can set this up user by user. Okay, and I'm going to hit close out of here. Looking at the general overview here, we have an option for exclude GL account from sales. Okay, so a good example here, and I have our customer deposits that we use for prepayments. And so I want to exclude my prepayment account, my customer deposit account from the sales graphs and KPIs on the dashboard. Okay, and so that is really the purpose behind what we've set this up for. However, you can, each client will have a different circumstance that they want to exclude, maybe a discount account from sales just for the purpose of reporting, right? So they can enter those here, and you can enter multiple GL accounts with the bar in between. Okay. The same thing, really same concept for here. So you can also exclude a resource from sales. So I've seen a prepayment account set up as a resource. So that would be another example. You could exclude a resource from the sales values here. Okay. Over here, this is on our map sales. So here, geo view is how you want those world map, local country maps to show. So you can either have them on separate tabs, so local country versus world only, or versus world on separate tabs itself. You can have them on combined, or you could just show world only or just local country only, okay? So I just have them as separate, and we'll see how that looks once we go to the dashboard. You can have your geo sales based on sell to address or ship to address. Okay, so that is what I have set up here. I have sell to, and then what the local country is, US versus Canada is what we have offerings for now. Okay. And then hand in hand with this, you'll just see that these should be preloaded here, state and county codes here for the US states and Canada as well, territories. Okay. Down here, sales analytics. So we built a sales analytics report that allows you to pull posted sales invoices and posted sales credit memos for all Business Central companies into one report. Okay, so this is really great. It's really, you cannot do that out of box without a reporting tool, right? that you would be using outside of Business Central. Okay, so again, this is a way to pull in posted sales invoices, posted credit memos for as many companies, Business Central companies, as you want. So what this feature does here is it's basically, if you're using this feature, it's going to auto load as you're posting sales invoices, as you're posting credit memos in real time. It'll load those into the sales analytics report that I'll show you. Okay. And then in conjunction with this feature here, we have a load sales analytics kind of one-time refresh, and you'll just need to do this one time. Okay, so that's basically going to load all historical sales invoices, sales credit memos into the report as like a one-time refresh. Okay. Alrighty. Oh, let me go back here. Two other action items here, configure item categories. So here is just linking to the Business Central item categories as a quick reference, and then checking if you want to include those in the sales dashboard. And then set posted invoice, credit memo, credit or customer ledger entries. So again, this is a one-time kind of process that you'll run. I would run it after hours to update fields on those pages in order for our sales dashboard to accurately calculate some of the KPIs there. Alrighty, to show quick the sales analytics page, one other thing I want to mention here is, so I mentioned before that the idea of this is so that you can see sales invoices, posted sales invoices, posted credit memos for multiple Business Central companies at once. If you plan to do that, you need to have the sales dashboard set up in both companies. Okay, so I have my Cronus here, and then let's say I have company number 2. You would go to the sales dashboard in both companies and hit load sales analytics. Okay, so you'd have to do that in both companies. And then if I go to sales analytics, you'll see sales analytics sales dashboard here, and see how I have another company called AAC Demo, and then I have my Cronus, which I'm currently in. So this is showing me posted invoices right now for both of those companies. Okay. And it'll show credit memos as well. So again, you just need to make sure you do that function in any company you want to bring the sales analytics into. And then you can, of course, export this to Excel. Okay. All right, so there's the sales dashboard setup. Once you're kind of done through that quick setup here, you'll have full access to the dashboard itself. So we'll go and check that out. Okay, and again, my sales dashboard automatically loaded to the back order page because that was set as my default view, right? But now I can quickly toggle between each of these. So I'll go to by customer and look at that. Okay. And then again, just like any of the other dashboards, you have all the date settings over here that you can toggle between. Okay. Alrighty, we are going to keep chugging along here. We're going to go into history and statistics setup next. Okay. Okay, so here I'm going to type in has setup. Okay, I'll make this look a little bit better for me here. So kind of half of history and statistics, I like to call it, is all about the change log and kind of that audit trail that we like to see. Okay, so with out-of-box Business Central, right, we have the change log entries table where you go in and you set up your change log, what you want to track, modifications, updates, deletions, all of that you set up. So what we're doing here is we're still utilizing the out-of-box change log. Okay, so you'll still go to your change log here, change log entries, go to setup right here. Okay, and you'll go to customer, pick if you want to track, all fields or some fields, do the same thing for vendor, bank account, etc. So you're still utilizing the changelog setup, the out-of-box changelog setup table. However, what we're doing is we're making those changes much more visible, okay? And so out of box, you have to go to this changelog entries screen here and kind of, search and chug through this to kind of find, maybe you're wondering who changed the address on a customer, things like that. It's not so visible to see. So what we're doing is we're placing that change log directly on the item card, the customer card, the vendor card. You'll see a lot here. So we're doing this for items, customers, vendors. We're also doing it for actual sales and purchase documents as well. So show me changes on a sales order, show me changes on a sales quote, etc. We're doing it for vendor bank account, which is a big one here as well, jobs and bank accounts here. Okay, so essentially it's two parts. One, you need to go to set up the changelog entries table just like you would normally, but then you're going to turn on here that, yes, I want to see the changelog directly on a customer. So let's look at how that will look like. So first, make sure you turn this on. I have show changelog on for my customer. I'm going to go to a customer now. And if I scroll down here for the bottom, you'll see ERC changelog. Okay, so this is what our extension is doing, is it's placing this customer's changelog directly on their card. Much more visible than out of box here, and it allows you to quickly see, okay, who changed the address, what was the previous address if it was a mistake, things like that. Okay, and then the same concept exists for vendors, items, bank accounts, vendor bank accounts, sales, and purchase transactions as well. Okay, and it's not going to automatically track everything, right? Because it's still relying on you to set up the changelog entries table. So it will only track what you set up there. Okay. So that is really all of the changelog piece on the setup. So it's as simple as saying, do I want to show the changelog on these records or not? Okay, so you'll just, hit yes or no here. Okay, that's what all of those are for. Okay, so we have items, customers, vendors, sales documents here, purchase documents down here. This manually load sales view. Okay, so we have a sales document search that and I'll go there next to show you that we created with history and statistics. It's a way for you to search all unposted and posted sales documents at once and generate a report in the system. You can save views. Okay, so for example, if you have, a top customer that you're always wanting to see, open transactions, posted transactions for, you can create a view for that customer, save it, and then this is saying, do you want to manually load that view once you go there, or do you want your default view to automatically load in for you? Okay, so there's just an option for you there. Again, down here you have purchase changelog information, jobs changelog, and then bank accounts. Okay. Lastly, here you have a Google Map API key, and this is nice, and this is for the history and statistics dashboard that we'll look at. So this is a way for you to just generate the Google Map API key so that for a customer, for example, it'll show on the dashboard a map and then their address on a map to show where they're at. And then if you look at the tooltip here, it really just shows you directly. You'll go to this URL right here, put that in your browser to generate the API key. You will have to create a user account, but it is free to do so. Okay. And then this right here is just kind of something to play with. How much do you want it to zoom in? So the higher the number, the more it will be zoomed in on their address in a map. Okay. Alrighty. Up here, you'll see the create vendor inventory. So again, this is just a process that you need to run one time. I do it after hours. It's going to be depending on how much inventory, right, is in the database, and it's going to be used on the vendor history and statistics and item history and statistics dashboards. Okay. Alrighty. So kind of show the change log, right, on history statistics on a customer card. Again, that exists for all of these categories here: items, customers, vendors, sales and purchase transactions. Now let's look at the actual dashboard. So different than the other dashboards where you can just search, financial dashboard or sales dashboard, the history statistics dashboards you access through records. Okay, so you'll access the history statistics dashboard through a customer or through a vendor. So what I mean by that is if I come up here to this customer you'll see history and statistics as an option on their customer card, okay? So instead of searching it up here, you'll access it through the records itself here. And after that quick really setup that we've already done, you'll have access to the full customer history here. Wait for this to load. Okay, and a lot of good information here. Okay, so again, we have a lot of KPIs up here. You can click through these to see where the data is coming behind. Top item sales, here's the Google Map. Looks like I just need to update my Google Map API key here. Customer items, sales documents, right? A lot of good information here. Okay. The great thing about this is you can actually access this through sales documents as well. So if you're working on a sales order for this customer, you want to look at, how many sales invoices or posted invoices are we still waiting for them to pay? Things like that. What was the last price we sold this item for them at? You can open up when you're creating a sales order, sales invoice, sales quote, you'll see this history and statistics button on the actual document itself that you can look at. Okay. And then this same button, right, with obviously different KPIs and statistics will be on items and vendors as well. Okay. So if I were to go to an item here, open that up, and you can actually access this history and statistics button from the item list as well. You don't have to open up the item card. You'll see that here. And then also a vendor. Lastly, to show with history and statistics, I want to quickly show the sales document search. And this feature is really, once you install it, you have it. There's really not much or really any setup to do here besides that one field we mentioned on the setup page here. But this is where I mentioned this is a great place where you can search all unposted, so open sales documents and posted sales documents. So up here, the first section is showing you what documents do you want to include, right? This section is showing you any filters you want to do. So you can make header filters or line filters up here. So line filters would be the actual item on a sales line itself. And then down here is the report that it will generate once you build your filters. So you can hit load records up here and it will reload this down here, okay? Right now, this section is a little small, so we added an option to hide show filters here where you can see that screen a little bit better, right? Okay, and then just a lot of good stuff you can kind of toggle and play with here. You can save your views as well. Okay, so these are just like out-of-box views where you can create your filters and then save it as a view. Okay. Alrighty. Lastly, we are going to go into the warehouse dashboard setup. Okay, so we're going to search WDB setup here. Okay, again, you'll see a user setup up here on the top. Okay, so this should be looking real familiar by now. You're going to be putting any user that should have access to the warehouse dashboard here. What dashboard view is their default? So mine is shipments right now. You can change that. Start timer and dashboard refresh go hand in hand. If you want it to automatically refresh, you can set that up here. Again, there is a button on the dashboard itself where you can do kind of like a forced refresh. Dashboard date range default. Do I want it to default to today, last 3 months? Etc. And then do I want it to cycle through the tabs once I'm on the dashboard? Okay, I'm gonna hit close here and we are gonna finish out on this setup now. Okay, so starting in the general section here, I have numbered days for item analytics. Okay, so this is going to say how many days out do I want to look at for the item analytics KPI or statistic really on the warehouse dashboard. So on the dashboard, there is a tab called inventory and there's item analytics on there. And this is saying to generate those item analytics, how many days do we want to look at? So I'm saying 90 days we want to look at to generate those analytics. Okay. Period for shipment day of week. So on the dashboard itself, there are shipment day of week charts. So essentially, what days of the week are most of our shipments going out, right? Is it Wednesday? Is it Monday, Fridays, etc.? And this is saying how how long do I want to look at historically those shipments? 6 months, 1 month, you can make your update here. Okay. We added the option to hide shipment charts and hide receipt charts here if needed. I have them turned off, and we'll see those calculate on the dashboard itself. Okay, next section here is pretty cool. So this is our purchase order view. So on the dashboard itself, there is a section, I think it's vendor, but we'll fact check me once we get to the warehouse dashboard itself, where you can directly follow up with a vendor from the dashboard on an outstanding PO. Right, so it'll show you purchase orders, it'll show you the receipt date that we expected to receive it, you know, and maybe it's past that date. Why haven't we received it yet? We want to follow up with the vendor and say, hey, you know, where's our inventory at? Can you give me an updated status? It'll look at the vendor's email set up on the vendor card, by the way, okay? And this is setting up what we want that email to look like, okay? So you can do an email template header and lines, okay? So I think mine's pretty generic here. You can just, you know, put in essentially what you want right here. We'll delete that info here, okay? And then we have my email template lines as well. Update that. You'll see that we have %1, which is purchase order number, and then %2 is item number. So when you're building out these templates, you can hover over this to look at the tooltip to see what you can use to get some good information in there. And again, this is just the email that's going out to the vendor when you want to follow up on that PO. Then you have email subject here as well, and then that you can build and customize yourself. And then lastly here, test email address. So I would absolutely recommend this when you're setting this up for the first time. We don't want to, you know, test and send it to the vendor to see what the email looks like. You'll see that I have my email address here. So now if I go to the warehouse dashboard and send a PO follow-up to my vendor, it'll actually send it to myself because I'm in test mode, right? So I can make sure that everything looks good. Once I'm comfortable, all you do is remove this address here, that email, and then it automatically knows we're not in test mode anymore, and it would actually send it to the vendor the next time you do it, okay? Moving along here, so we have vendor view. So returns multiplier here. On the dashboard itself, we have a vendor score, okay, right? And we're looking at several things to generate that score. Are they delivering? Are we receiving inventory on time? How many returns are we doing? So this is a way, if you want returns to, you know, highly impact that vendor score, right? That is crucial to the business. You can basically increase the number. The larger the number, the more it'll affect, the greater the impact it'll have on the score. Okay, so right now mine's just a 1-for-1. Every return will be a -1 against their vendor score. If I wanted each return to be a -5, right, I would put a 5 here. Again, the greater the number, the more it'll hurt their vendor score. Okay. These really two options here are, how do we want to handle posted purchase receipts without an order date? And this is, so we're calculating average lead time on our warehouse dashboard here. And you have the option, it'll air out, which I wouldn't recommend. You could ignore it or use posting date as order date. And then same concept here for item average lead time. Do we want to air it out, ignore it, or use posting date as order date? Okay. All right. And then, of course, just like the other apps, you'll see that generate demo key, activation key up here. We have each app on the setup page has the activation section down here where you can grab that tenant ID if you need a new activation key, okay, or demo key. Okay. And lastly here, we're going to go and just check out the warehouse dashboard. After you've gone through that quick setup, you will have full access here, okay? So you'll see warehouse dashboard here. My default view was the shipments, which you can see for me that loaded nice and fast here, which is great. And that was, again, my default view. And I can look at all of these statistics and KPIs from here. And then again, of course, can toggle between each of these. And then you have all of these date options up here. One other thing I'll just touch on quick is you'll see the settings option up here. The settings option is user by user. So you'll see when I click it, it is automatically filtered to my admin user. And this is a kind of opening up this user's dashboard settings, right? And one thing I like to call out is we have all of these date filters kind of pre-built, but if they want to do a custom start and end date, they'll select custom here, and then they can put in their own start and end date, and it will update the entire dashboard to be that custom date, which is a great option. Okay. Alrighty, that is kind of the closeout of all of the dashboard setups there. Again, the goal is that one-time setup, and then you have full access to all 4 of these dashboards, which is great, and then everything else it has to offer. So I will pass it back to you, Ben, and I will reshare my screen over here.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, that was a great presentation, and I hope that everyone was able to see how quickly we can get all 4 of those dashboards up in your demo environment. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either Carlie and I to help walk you through those. But since we do have a few minutes left, I just want to highlight some of the things that I think add immediate value into prospects and clients that we've seen with a lot of our partners, right? So financial dashboard, I would say that AR aging, as well as the balance checks to check subledger to general ledger, are typically 2 of the ones we get the most reviews on in a positive light, right? That AR aging, we all know what that out-of-box aging looks like in Business Central. This gives you that ability to actually see it in a more visually appealing manner and also do some drill downs. And then those balance checks, I know that's one of the things that clients always try to do at go live. However, for some reason, it seems that direct posting doesn't seem to be toggled right sometimes, and those balance checks are off, right? So checking AR, AP, inventory, cash, all those good things with a click of a button can be a huge value add and also be a good way to do a health check for free for some of your clients, since these do all come with that 30-day free trial, right? Sales dashboard, I'd focus on that sales analytics across the companies, the bubble map sales, and kind of those trends of how much you're selling, right? Anything and everything related to revenue coming to your company. History and statistics, I personally like that one because it's a deep dive into the vendors, the customers, and the items, as well as those change logs like we saw. We got a lot of great questions in the chat about the change logs, so I'll be following up on those to see if there's more tables we can expand that to. And then the sales document search, right? Being able to search across multiple tables that aren't necessarily related, from posted to unposted, and things like that around quotes, orders, invoices, archives, all of that good stuff. And then finally, the warehouse dashboard that Carlie just showed, right? Shipment, receipt stats, and then my personal favorite, kind of those purchase order reminders. Hey, we haven't gotten our stuff yet. And now you're able to automatically generate some of those notifications directly out to your vendors. So again, just kind of wanted to highlight a few. I know there's a lot there, so if you had to hyper focus on just a few to show a client in a demo, since I know you'll probably only have a few minutes to show, our stuff as you're going through everything else, those are the ones that I'd focus on. And again, we'll have a few minutes here to answer any other questions at the end. Appreciate everybody who asked questions throughout the chat. And Carlie, thanks for going through that. I didn't want to interrupt you, so I've just managed to answer all of those in line with the chat. I don't think there was anything there that needs to be brought up with the group. They were all mostly individual. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. So we've got the resources up here, right? You can always reach out to Carlie or myself, but if you want to do some self-learning online, we have both our product page and app source. That's going to be anything and everything you need to learn more about our apps. Dave, I think you asked about some of the content. We've got both the user guides as well as our videos. And again, product page or app source links are both going to be available in order to access that information. Includes summaries, screenshots, setup guides, videos, download links, free trials, all that good stuff. YouTube channel, this is going to include videos across all of our apps as well as other educational material, not necessarily related to our apps. We have both, right? Just some out-of-box functions in Business Central, as well as walkthroughs and recordings of both our apps, our Toolbox Tuesdays, and our sessions like this. And then finally, our product guide. This is going to be about a 30-page long document. Every page is going to hyper focus on one of those apps. You see kind of a highlight of all those apps over to the right on the screen here. The first thing is going to be a fit gap analysis. So here are some of the things that we've seen in Business Central that clients and partners tend to either struggle with or want more from. So we'll try to show how our solution fits those gaps, right? And then also good questions to ask your clients, as well as how long they take to configure and train on. We saw today that we got all 4 of those completed. Although we were going through it very quickly, I know we got all those completed in under an hour, right? So if a client's looking for a quick win, the dashboards are a great place to start. And I do like to mention as well, this is only 4 of the 28 apps that we currently have on AppSource. So there's a lot more than we showed today, but people like reporting in Business Central directly embedded. Our goal has been to give them that, and by using these dashboards directly embedded into Business Central, we're able to do so. So that's all I've got for the resources. Carlie, if you want to go to our last slide here, just have about 7 more minutes. If anybody has any other questions, I will stick around, but do want to thank everybody for coming today. And Carlie, thanks for putting on an absolutely incredible presentation. Hope everyone's now been able to go out and show those off to your clients, and then also help them configure once they've made that purchase. Looks like we got a few more questions coming in. I'll just answer those live in case anybody's sticking around. So TJ asked a question about the balance checks. Looks like you might still be typing there, but again, those balance checks, the goal there is to look at things like your AR, AP, inventory, prepayments, cash balances, right? And with a click of a button, see, does my general ledger match my sub ledger, right? We've seen a lot of times that for some reason, those don't, unfortunately, at clients, whether that was from a go live activity or something else. This gives us a good indication without having to run a lot of other reports that can be time consuming. This gives you it, at the click of a button or in just a few seconds there. How does the system know what accounts to pick from, and does it convert to local currency? Local currency, short answer there is yes. How does it know what accounts to pick from? It's looking at your posting group setup. So you'll have your bank account posting groups, let's say. So based on those posting groups, it knows what subledger accounts to look at and what general ledger accounts to look at based on that link. Same with customer posting group, for example. It's going to know which customer posting groups are attached to those AR accounts. It's going to know where that AR has been posted in your general ledger and your subledger, and it's going to look to make sure that those match up. And then again, on the local currency piece, yes, it is converting to the LCY currency that you've got set up in Business Central. Tammy got a customer that we're talking about this week. That's awesome. Please feel free to loop me in if you have any other questions. And again, I would highly encourage everybody to get those free trials into their demo instance as well as their client's instance, right? So one of the biggest ways we've seen wins is clients seeing their own data in a demo. We saw that financial dashboard got up and running in about 15 minutes. So again, within 15 minutes, you can show a client about 25 to 30 KPIs, charts, and metrics directly embedded into Business Central simply by downloading it, generating that demo key, and then doing some light configuration. So would definitely, if you're showing that to a customer, encourage them to download that demo into their environment so that they can see the data in their live environment. Awesome. Looks like all the other comments are just saying thank you. So again, appreciate everybody being here. I'll stick around for another 4 or 5 minutes in case anybody has any other questions, since it looks like there's still a handful of folks on the call, but this will be posted on our YouTube channel. It has been recorded today, so we'll be sending that out after the call if anybody wants to revisit any of those topics. But again, thanks again, and feel free to reach out if you have any other questions.